It's only if a person doesn't have anything useful to offer, they call themselves an influencer. Just as if a person doesn't have any actual value to provide, they call themselves content creator. Greetings, this is Eugene the Philosopher, the greatest living philosopher after the unfortunate passing of Quentin Robert de Nameland, who has been the greatest living philosopher before me. Let's talk about content creators and influencers. So, obviously we're dealing with a contradiction between form and content over here, alright? And I would claim that the very word content means, paradoxically, that form is more important than content. Let's examine this issue a little bit. So imagine somebody says, well, hey, I got a pizza box over here. Take a look. And you're saying, well, what's inside? And they're saying, content. Wink, wink. Well, what's the content? Well, it could be anything, you know. It could be rotten fish. It could be scrap metal. It could be air. It could be an actual pizza. Who knows? So, content is almost like by definition, like whatever fills the container, right? The container means pizza box in this case. And the very word content, which is whatever fills the container, means that the container is actually the most important thing right here, alright? The pizza box is the king. So content could be anything. And by using this word, we're emphasizing how little we care about what it really is. So in some sense, content creator is just the box filler, you know? So the box is more important. So paradoxically, again, content creator is a secondary role in itself. We just need a fancy box to start with, and there we're Gucci. So it's the form over function type of approach in terms of operation. What is the box, in my analogy? Well, it could be anything. Anything you can see on social media, mostly, because that's where we were talking about content creators in the first place. So it could be Instagram photos, like cool ones, you know, or stories. It could be YouTube thumbnails. It's a box as well. YouTube shorts is a very recognizable box nowadays. Titles, YouTube titles. Also, internal structure of YouTube videos is a box in itself. You may see, actually, like if you watch them carefully, like maybe you don't pay as much attention as I do when I watch other people's videos because, well, I produce my own videos, so I kind of do. So, yeah. Well, anyway, internally, like videos are pretty well structured, like especially the good ones. Like the clickbaity ones, you know, the content creator ones, you know. Anyways, so another example would be rage inciting Twitter threads, or X threads, you might say, nowadays. So regardless of whatever I just named, their inner value, their inner topic even. So again, this demeaning, derogatory, almost I would say degenerate nature of the word content, as in generic filler, you know, it only underlines the unimportance of content itself. It's the form that is important. You're never saying form creator, because form is the most important thing. So you're saying content creator. Like, we create the form, that's the real part. Then we create content. Like, we're just filling this pizza box with whatever we have, you know, how they say in Italy, like, pasta alla puttanesca, you know, I'm not gonna translate this. But it's like whatever remains you have in the kitchen, you just put them in, you know, in your pasta. That's called pasta alla puttanesca. Yeah, so, so imagine, like 100 years ago, somebody asked you, well, who are you? Like, what's your occupation? You would say, I'm a professional. Well, that's exactly what, you would hear, like, what corresponds to modern, I'm a content creator, right? Because I'm a professional sounds like, Yeah, but that's kind of not what I'm asking about. Like, I'm asking about what is your profession? Like, what do you do? Are you a doctor? Are you a teacher? Are you a plumber? Are you a vendor in a shop? Are you a miner? I don't know, whatever comes into your mind. So that's exactly what you have to ask of a content creator, aren't you? Like, you have to ask, like, what kind of content are you creating? Right? So, you see what I'm saying? Like, content creator is not really a thing. It's like, hopefully you can see what I'm saying. So yeah, so as the, let's say, advertising strategies evolve, so the social media kind of evolve their way of dealing, like their terms of service changes or whatever. So you have to, like, the format changes slightly, right? The pizza box evolves. So the guy who fills the pizza box, the content creator, have to adapt to that, right? So that's why they're saying I'm a content creator. Like, I fill whatever the box I'm provided, right? Which is, and the box is provided by the standards of advertisement, essentially, on the social media right now, in 2023 right now, but it was 2022, a year ago, right? And the standards were a little bit different back then. And they're probably gonna be a little bit different a year from now. So the box will change again. So whoever was the content creator can still be a content creator because, well, they still, their task is the same. It's filling the box. The box has changed, but never mind. It's exactly their job to fill in the new box, right? The old box they could fill. The today's box they can fill. The next day's box they also can fill because they are a professional in whatever they're doing, which is just filling the box, right? With whatever the putanesca stuff they have on their hand. So yeah, and it's kind of bad, you know. Like this is kind of the point of this video. So like we're losing focus, you know. We're losing the essence, the subject, like the profession, right? We're just becoming the consumers of whatever the professionals, the content creators, are producing, which is nothing essentially. They're just filling the whatever advertisers tell them to fill, right? So what do I mean by we're losing focus? Well, you almost never, like, think about it. You almost never expect to find, like, genuine value in the next video you're gonna click on YouTube perhaps after you've watched this one, for example. You almost don't expect to find any substance. Maybe you see a cool picture, a thumbnail, cool title, and you think, well, okay, I'm gonna click on this, like, perhaps it caught my attention, I'm gonna click on this, but subconsciously you already kinda know that it's gonna be trash. Like, there's gonna be no value, nothing of substance, it's gonna be, like, filled with all of this semi-advertising crap, right? Mostly. So, that's what I'm talking about. This is what this video is about, essentially. So, yeah, unfortunately, I should have added. So yeah, let me make a little sub-rant on the topic of value, since I've already mentioned this word. So what do I mean by value? Well, I would say that value is the degree of influence that your work makes on others, if that makes any sense. A degree of change in audience's behavior or perception thanks to whatever they've just consumed. I don't really like the word consumed, but I don't have any other synonym on tap, so to speak, so I'm just gonna run with that. So yeah, the amount of impression your work is making, if you wish, that's the value. And compare this to the anonymous generic content, right? Content implies that it's just there. It's this gray, inert, you know, thing. It's just lying there. It's just content. It's just contained somewhere. It doesn't do anything useful, right? So, yeah, so we've transitioned from this value-based economy, from this, like, you know, I'm actually doing something useful economy, towards I'm actually selling you something fancy type of economy, which is packaging-based economy, you might call it. So package is the thing that matters or sells, you know, the box, the pizza box. What's in the box? You know, the content. Yo, this should have been the perfect ending for the 7, you know. What's in the box? the content, whatever. So the modern culture of advertisement, the hustle economy, how Rollo Tomassi calls it. And I gotta remember, like the modern Russian thinker, Sergei Pereslegin, he has like a cube. He's a very like out there kind of schizoid theoretician, but he has some interesting ideas. As I've mentioned some of them previously. Well, now I'm gonna mention another one. So he has a cube, which is again like a very abstract construct. We have like 4 actual processes that society has to maintain in order to, well, survive. And it has like, so it's 4 points, right? But you need 4 more to create a cube. So these 4 others are like shadow processes with respect to the real ones. So one of the real processes is production, because society needs to produce some stuff to survive, right? What's the shadow analog of the real production? Well, it's packaging. And that's exactly what I'm talking about in this video. So there is a real production of value, but there is a phantom shadow, like mocking clown process of packaging, which is like, it's like, how do you say it? Like chameleoning itself for real production, but actually it's a mocking version thereof, sort of. So, my own point, with respect to value and its production would be that, from my observations at least, it follows that in social media, the dynamic is such that there are, roughly speaking, 3 actors in the process of, well, let's say transport of information, simply put. So there are producers. That's the first thing. Then there are, amplifiers or spreaders. That's the second link in the chain. And the third, the last link is the consumers. So who are the producers? It's actually fitting for both content, art, like in regular conversation, even, like the talking points, like see my video about talking points. I'm going to link it in the description. So how you are actually repeating the talking points you've learned from the producers or amplifiers, where you are the consumer, kind of. So, who are the producers? Well, they are very rare and they are rarely known. Actually, social media kind of ignores them. However, it definitely feeds on input from them, right? So the producers are the ones with their boots on the ground, so to speak, kind of mining the raw ore, if you wish, of the world and kind of translating it into something that can be, how you say it, communicated. That's the perfect word. So they are researchers and thinkers. So I'm mostly talking about, roughly speaking, science and science communication. So, I mean, it's applicable everywhere, but what I'm focusing on this channel on is science and things related to that. Not only, but mostly these things. So, with respect to science, the producers would be actual researchers. People who actually work with data, produce scientific papers, and maybe press releases to them, alright? Something like that. Actual creators, you might say. Well, who are the spreaders or amplifiers? Well, those would be like, again, large aggregators of scientific news, like social media platforms, large, like quasi-parascientific channels, like Sabine Hossenfelder or Fraser Cain or whatever, like this Veritasium, like whatever other people like that. And who are the consumers? Well, it's you, right? It's the guys who click on the videos, read the newsletters, they're subscribed to, I don't know, whatever, you name it, you got the idea, hopefully. So amplifiers are the ones, like these large outlets, are the ones who repackage, essentially, the value produced on the previous step, right? The value produced by producers is then repackaged by amplifiers/spreaders. So this is this phantom process of packaging, right? The content creation. This is where content creation comes into play. Like Anton Petrov, right? Or whatever other idiots like this come into play, right? So, and they label this repackaging content creation, right? So whereas it's more like a content insertion, right? They've essentially stolen the content, the value from these previous guys, the producers. They've like wrapped it in their stupid pizza box, which is fitting for them to be monetized and sell whatever they're selling. And they're giving it off to you, the consumer, right? That's what's happening, essentially. So whatever the pizza box is the most marketable right now, they wrap it in, whatever the producers actually produce, and they give it to you. So most of the things you learn on the internet are actually being spread by spreaders or amplifiers, the repackagers, the content creators. So that's kind of the big tragedy, but it's kind of fine. I mean, you can also claim that the producers are scientists, the repackagers, I mean amplifiers or spreaders, are journalists, and the consumer is you, right? You don't have a connection to the scientist, but you read what journalists write or watch, what they film. So this would be another analogy. Not even an analogy, it's like a, example. So so that's kind of my point. So content creation is actually a phantom process. It's actually a repackaging of value, with adding some useless crap to it just to be more fitting into the current marketable design. Let's put it this way. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about is, again, the promised influencers, right? Influencers, if you know what I mean. Well, when we're talking about influencers, the question might arise, just like we've asked before, like content creator, what kind of content are you creating? So if you're asking somebody, who are you? They're saying, I'm an influencer, baby. Well, who are you influencing? One question. Another question, why are you influencing them? The third question, how are you influencing them? Etc., 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 So, what is your goal ultimately? Like, what are you trying to achieve with your influence, So, arguably, you might say, any person is an influencer, like a plumber or a street sweeper, is an influencer because, well, they influence the city's hygiene a lot, they influence people's health a lot. This is actually helpful for people, believe it or not, to be healthy, etc., etc. So, what are we even talking about? Well, like, influencer is not a profession. It's not a value that you produce, right? Right? Well, let's examine it a little bit more. So, any other profession is also an influencer, not only the ones that I've already mentioned, obviously for the very same reason. And the better the people are at their profession, the more influence they have, generally speaking, because again, the more good they can provide to other people, the more influence they have on these people, obviously, again, and the more power they and their clients have. Again, see my video, Reciprocity of Power, in the description, where I talk about how not only is the one who, watch the video. I was just talking about how trade is ultimately beneficial for both sides there, right? Not only the one who is buying something benefits, but the one who is selling benefits, etc. Everyone benefits from the trade, essentially. If it's voluntary, that's the only asterisk here. So, So basically, when a person says, I'm an influencer, what does that mean? Well, it means I want to have power while not doing anything useful in particular, and, not providing any value either. That's essentially what they're saying, because again, as I've said, any person with an actually useful profession is an influencer, but they would never call themselves an influencer because it's kind of implied. I mean, it's obvious that they influence someone. It's only if a person doesn't have anything useful to offer, they call themselves an influencer. Just as if a person doesn't have any actual value to provide, they call themselves content creator, right? When they don't have any content to create, they call themselves content creator. So that's a big unfortunate paradox of the social media. So yeah, and so essentially influencer means, if you think about it literally, power haver. Like, who can influence? Well, having an influence meaning having power. I have influence over, I don't know, an umbrella. Like, I'm just watching it, my umbrella. I can take it in my hand, I can break it, I can burn it, I can use it actually, right? I have power over my umbrella. So an influencer, I have influence over my umbrella. An influencer means someone who has power over other people, which means they can make them do stuff, right? They have power over them, which means, yeah, so I'm an influencer, I'm a power haver. I have people at my disposal, essentially my army of mercenaries, if you wish. So please give me advertising contracts, you know, or something like that. Well, that would make sense at least. But if you think about it some more, again, you would arrive at the conclusion that we've long had a better word for this sort of policy, which is an idol, right? So, and it's much more straightforward, and it literally means the same thing. Influencer is just an euphemism for an idol, ultimately. Of course, calling yourself, like, I'm an idol would sound very shameless and audacious and blah blah. But such is the doublespeak of the social media. Again, it's very dirty inherently. It's very, cringe, how they say today. But yeah, so essentially, I want to be cherished and idolized by you. Means I'm an influencer. That's what they actually say, right? But the question that arises is, what have you done to be cherished and idolized? That's kind of, again, the same question I keep repeating over and over. And remember what your holy books tell you about this kind of dynamic. Like the Bible says, you shall not make for yourself an idol, and same is said in Islam, for example. And it's good advice, like legit, I would subscribe for it, because, well, the books show you how unhealthy it is to have an idol. And today we have social media with influencers, aka idols, and voila, we have mental health epidemic, or pandemic is a more fancy word today. So who could have thought? Right? Who could have thought? Well, actually, we don't have a mental health pandemic. And again, see the video of Sabine Hossenfelder, who I have already mentioned. It's actually a decent video. Actually, it's a shitty video, but she she claims that there is no mental health pandemic, and that's kind of fun. Never mind. Last thing I could have talked about with respect to influencers would be women, and how women are very popular on social media, if you know what I mean. Maybe I'll put one of them on my thumbnails. I don't know any of them, but I can, you know, craft a very simple Google search combination of, actually not Google, I use DuckDuckGo, just FYI. Sometimes I use both, because there are some things that are absent either in Google or DuckDuckGo, or in both. Then I use Yandex or something else. I've never used anything else, to be honest, except Elicit to search for papers specifically. It's an AI-assisted scientific paper search engine. Pretty good, even though it's in very early development. So anyways, Elicit.org, if you're interested. It's not sponsored, unfortunately, by them, but yeah, I use it. So anyways, women on social media, right? Because it's actually the kind of a patriarchal, you know, anachronistic, you know, like ancient role of a woman, right? Not to produce anything of value, but just be pretty and give birth to children. So in this sense, well, okay, women on social media, they don't produce anything of value, most of them anyways. And you know the kind of women I'm talking about. One of them I'll put in the thumbnail, or one of these influencers probably. So they're just being pretty, right? So that's the value they produce, right? Just being pretty. Anyways, but I won't be talking about this too much. Let's just conclude, all right? So, semi-conclusion to what I've said is literally no person with a gram of a good taste would ever call themselves content creator. Just basically means I have nothing useful to tell you or show you. Have nothing I produce is of any value, right? This is what I'm a content creator means. And none of the people with any touch of a good taste would ever call themselves an influencer. It just basically means, please idolize me. I know I'm kind of a trash person. I don't do anything useful, but you should idolize me because, well, if I'm a woman, I'm at least pretty, okay? So idolize me for that, even though I have probably a really shitty character, etc., etc. Yeah, so the conclusion is that the paradox of the term content creator is in the fact that the very usage of this term implies that the content itself, the essence, the substance, if you wish, does not matter. What does matter is the package that the content is wrapped in, right? And the package is dictated by the current standards of advertisement, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. And the second point, influencer means power haver. And again, no good person would ever call themselves an influencer. And which, yeah, well, I've already made this point, but it's just a euphemism for an idol. And if somebody calls themselves an influencer, they just want to be idolized for the sake of them being idolized. Again, with no reason at all. Just because they are already famous, they assume they have to be more famous somehow. I don't know. Matthew's Law, it's called, right? Those who are rich are going to become richer. Those who are poor are going to become poorer. That's kind of what they want. Make yourself, you shall not make for yourself an idol. That's what the Bible says. Matthew's Law is also a Bible, so contradiction. Think about it in your free time. Meanwhile, thank you for watching. The eons are closing.
If you wish to support me, please consider joining my Patreon. That is patreon.com/philosopher. See the link in the description. Or if you have a scientific theory of your own and you'd like my help in developing it, please join my alternative science coaching program, also available through Patreon.